They are now live streaming.
Good evening. Welcome to the March Town of Lancaster Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. We're going to start with the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'm going to ask our town clerk, Diane Terranova, to take the roll, please.
Mr. Hain. Mr. Michaely.
Here.
Mr. Storr.
Here.
Mr. Tillmans.
Here.
Mr. Robluski.
Here.
Mr. Zella.
Here.
Chairman Monticelli.
Here. Thank you. And will you read us the first case, please, Mr. Terranova?
First case considered by the Zoning Board of Appeals is that of the petition of William Klapfelter, 18 Petersburg Circle, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of installing a shed and a public drainage easement on premises owned by the petitioner at 18 Petersburg Circle, Lancaster, New York, to wit. A variance from the requirements of Chapter 400, zoning section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for installing a 10 by 10 foot shed and a public drainage easement. Chapter 400, zoning section 14, subsection D, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires no structures other than fencing be allowed within any drainage access easement. The petitioner therefore requests a 5-foot encroachment into a public drainage easement variance.
Thank you. And do we have someone here from 18 Petersburg? Yes. Come on up, please. And for the record, will you give us your name and address?
William Clodfelter, 18 Petersbrook Circle.
Thank you. Go ahead and tell us about your project.
Well, there's a 15-foot easement for a drainage pipe, and I want to come into that. I have a very shallow lot, and in order for me to put a shed in without being real close to my house, I need to go into the easement a little bit. Now, the easement is for a drainage pipe that is actually not on the borderline, but on the neighbor's property. So my thought was, if I only encroach 5 feet, there would still be room for a backhoe to get in there, with the outriggers to come down and be able to work on a pipe if it had to.
Without having to move your shed?
Without moving head, yes.
Okay.
There'd still be 10 feet on my side and 15 feet on the neighbor's side. So it's 25 feet for a piece of equipment to come in.
Okay. All right. Have you talked to your neighbors about your project?
Actually, they just put in a shed and I told them that I was going to go for a variance. I didn't really tell them when, or, they had just moved in and it came up in discussion, but not that.
All righty. Anything else you want to tell us?
No, I think that's about it. I don't think that's a huge ask for 2 feet.
Okay. Well, we'll open it up to the board for questions then. Mr. Michaely?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Matt, are you able to confirm the location of the pipe?
Well, the highway department can identify where the pipe is. It's running parallel to the south property line, somewhere within that 15-foot drainage easement.
So what you're saying, it's in your neighbor, it does go across this property, correct?
From my understanding of that development,
Okay.
there was an installation after the fact that ran a pipe horizontal, runs east and west, and there should be rear yard drains at each property line to collect any surface runoff and then convey it
Right at the south property line.
at south property line. We're
Okay.
not sure exactly where that is.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Thank you, Madam Chair, I have no more questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Michaely. And Mr. Storr?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Would you be willing to agree to an addendum where if the town at some point in time needed to get to the drainage easement pipe, and you would be willing to move your shed at your cost to allow the town?
Absolutely. I was going to get one of those delivered ones that are built to be, moved, dropped
Perfect.
off, so moving it probably wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, no more questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Storr. Mr. Tillmans?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, it seems that there's quite a few houses in that neighborhood that are encroaching on that easement. Is that true, Matt? Or I guess just looking at maps, it looks like.
Well, I don't
especially
doubt
the
it.
neighbors on either side. Yeah.
It's a 40-plus-year-old neighborhood.
Okay.
There was never a rear yard system in place at the time of construction of the development. It was primarily through surface swales that would take water east and west and flow it to a streamway that ran through the property. Over time, of course, things happened and grades changed.
Yeah.
There was an issue there. A system was installed to help with that. And,
Was that because of the development behind it then?
oh no,
Or
no, this was the
even predates
original
that?
installation of
Okay.
this development. The easement was in place at the time the development was
Okay,
installed.
gotcha.
Again, that was meant to convey surface water
Yeah.
to a streamway further east of the property.
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking at the neighborhood and it looks like there's pools in the, but could be pretty much in the easement and whatnot, so. All right, I have no further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Tillmans. Mr. Robluski?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Zelak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have one question. On this survey, was there a shed on there before? In the opposite corner?
When I purchased the house, you could tell there was a shed in the easement.
Yep.
But it wasn't there when I looked at the house, when I purchased the
I
house.
see one's crossed out, and it's rectangular, 10 by 12, that's on the line. Sure.
Oh, that's the original location that I wanted to put it. I misunderstood where my property line was.
Okay, so it's not, you're actually coming down. You were going for a 10 by 10, 100
I was
square
originally
foot?
going for a 10 by 12, realized that my property line wasn't where I thought it was, and I went down to 10 by 10.
All right,
so,
thank you. No further questions. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I have no questions. So is there anyone in the audience who'd like to speak about this matter? Okay, seeing none. Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Keith.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings: that no undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that no detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefit sought by the applicant cannot be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance relief sought is not substantial, that the proposed area variance relief will not have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created, but not to the extent necessary to preclude the granting of the area variance relief sought, that this board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicant if the variance relief sought is granted as weighted against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood community by such grant, that within the intended purposes of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, if granted, is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief, with the addendum that the homeowner will agree to remove the shed if the town needs access to the easement, to be filed with the county in perpetuity for the, like, do you know what I'm trying to?
Yeah, we rely
Yeah.
on Diane for the word.
Diane, you know what I mean?
Yep.
That needs to be filed with the county, so that way if he sells the house, future homeowners also agree to move the shed.
All seconds.
Okay, roll call vote whenever you're ready, please.
Mr. Mikely?
Yes.
Mr. Storr?
Yes?
Mr. Tillmans?
Yes,
Mr. Robluski?
Yes.
Mr. Zelik?
Yes.
Ms. Monticelli?
Yes. Okay, congratulations. Your variance has been granted. You'll need to get together with Matt or someone in the building department and they'll tell
Move
you how to
forward.
proceed. As far as the addendum goes, we're asking you to sign something saying that in the event that the town needs access to the easement, you will move your shed if it's necessary, and we're asking you to file that with the county clerk's office.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you so much.
All right, you're welcome. Have a good night. Hi, would you read the next case, please?
The second case considered by the zoning board of appeals is that of the petition of Jeffrey Palumbo, 9276 Main Street, Suite 3, Clarence, New York, representing Ted's Quarry LLC, 324 Pavement Road, Lancaster, New York, for one variance for the purpose of subdividing the parcel to create a lot without road frontage on premises owned by Ted's Quarry LLC at 324 Pavement Road, Lancaster, New York, to wit: a variance from the requirements of Chapter 400 zoning Section 21, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster. The request calls for subdividing the parcel to create a lot without road frontage. Chapter 400 zoning Section 21, subsection C, Schedule B of the Code of the Town of Lancaster requires a minimum lot width of 100 feet. The petitioner therefore requests a 100-foot variance.
Thank you. And sir, are you here for this case?
Good evening, I'm Jeff Palumbo. I represent the petitioner this evening, the Kolbecki firm.
We need your address too.
It's 9276 Main Street in Clarence.
Thank you.
And I'm with the law firm of Block, Longo, Lamarca, and Brzezinski.
Okay. And
Got to spell Brzezinski? I still don't know. So I've kind of made a mess of this whole area, quite frankly. The property was at one time owned by the Kolbecki firm in the entire parcel. It's now been divided. The frontage on one side has gone to the grid company. The frontage on the pavement side was transferred to the Anastasi Trucking Company. I handled the transfer for Anastasi when they purchased the frontage. But by doing that, we created this landlocked parcel in the middle of the property, which currently has no frontage. So that's the reason why we asked for the variance, because we created the situation with a landlocked parcel. And I went through all the factors in the application, and I'll go through them very briefly, but the important part of this is that when we transferred the property to Anastasi, when it was transferred to them, the portion of the property that fronts on pavement, we have easements on that property that have been recorded that allow access to the middle parcel. So although they don't have frontage, they do have access. There's two methods of ingress and egress on the property with the, as you can see from the attached easement, that allows access. The other important part of this is that there's no plans for development of that middle parcel. The Kolbecki family uses it really for recreational purposes. They do some fishing there. Mr. Kolbecki told me yesterday that at most they might seek to put a cabin or something like that at some time in the future. They don't have any plans for that, but if anything happens, it would be that. So when you weigh the benefit and detriment, I would hope that you conclude that there's no detriment, that anybody driving by isn't going to know the difference today or tomorrow. If the variance is granted, everything will remain the same. A couple of things with respect to the issue of whether or not the change in the neighborhood. As I said, if you drive by, if you do grant this and drive by tomorrow, nobody will ever notice the difference. The benefit, whether it can be achieved in any other feasible way, I think Matt can attest that we attempted to try to do that in several different ways, none of which were successful, which included potentially buying the right-of-way adjacent to the property. That didn't work out. I spoke about potentially an open development area. That didn't apply in this case. I also spoke about the fact that the ownership of the northernmost parcel and the middle parcel are both owned by Kolbecki entities. So in reality, they're the same owners, but that didn't fly either with the town attorney or Matt, so that we were left with the option of requesting the variance for that middle parcel. In terms of whether it'll have an adverse impact on the neighborhood, again, or the environmental conditions of the neighborhood, I would suggest that it will not. Again, it will be exactly the same tomorrow as it is today. The difficulty was self-created, thanks to both myself and the attorney that represented Mr. Kolbecki when we created the landlocked parcel. But we would hope that the factors weigh in our favor, and we're looking for the board to grant the variance this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll go to the board and start with Mr. Storr.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No questions.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. And Mr. Tillmans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the easement is is going through the property on the northeast corner, right? On pavement?
It's actually on the south, and I think That's the access point.
This one here, right? Right,
Yeah, it starts here.
right.
That's his drawing.
All right, so this parcel is the one that they sold off, correct?
This entire parcel.
So they don't own this at all?
We own this now, about the second.
So they do own this. So this is actually the easement here.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
It goes right through.
Gotcha. I was thinking the other way around.
This picture here.
Okay. So you own that.
Right,
Okay.
because the easement ran through the other parcel as well.
Right, and then that property that's on this other opposite side of that parcel, that's owned by the Kalbecky as well?
Correct.
And that doesn't have, like, you couldn't use that property as the,
Well,
And the frontage?
This was all part of the purchase with Anastasia.
okay, so this is gone now
Correct.
as well, yeah, because this has still got it listed as,
It's a little strange looking on the
Yeah.
survey
because even the GSI map has it as
as somebody else.
72 Quarry LLC
Right,
owns
and
it still. But
that
that's no
has
longer the
been
case either, okay. All right. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doherty. Mr. Obluski?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Zelak?
I have no questions, Madam Chair, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone in the audience?
Jill, I have a question. As it stands right now, is the property all under one deed? Because it looks like there's a separate parcel that runs through here that's not connected with the rest of it. That's for you. I have a better view on Matt's computer here. This, where this dotted line runs across.
That's the one that we were just talking about. That is part of this now. It's been merged.
Do you have a deed that shows it's been
I don't
merged?
have it with me, but
Okay.
we can provide it.
Were there any?
I think it was actually part of the first transfer. I'll have to provide the deeds to you.
All right, was there any communication with the town assessor's office? There was a problem with the way the deed was described, and it wasn't able to close a loop.
Yeah, I met with the assessor, and I thought we had resolved that question when I left that day.
Within the last week to 10 days?
No, this was probably 2 months ago, man. Yeah, nobody brought it to my attention.
So this is a pretty recent transaction?
It was actually last year.
Okay,
It was probably 9 months ago now.
gotcha, okay.
Matt, is there anything else that you want to add or that you can clarify for us?
Simply, it's going to be a landlocked parcel in the middle of nowhere, no access other than through this easement,
Through the what?
through the easement that was proposed. I would imagine it would still need to be reviewed and
Well, the easement would need to be filed with the deed, and we would need,
It was recorded.
it was recorded.
Yeah.
Do we have a receipt? We would just need a receipt of that recorded.
Yeah, it's attached to the application, the copy of the filing receipt.
Okay.
And we went post-transfer for subdivision approval, and that's pending, and one of the issues was this issue of the landlocked parcel. I think we covered all the other issues, but I'll go through that with Matt again, because it's been some time now.
So when you're talking subdivision, what parcel are you talking about for
The
subdivision?
transfer to Anastasia of the pavement portion, that's an actual subdivision.
Okay.
And I didn't ask for approval. You know, I've only been doing this 40 years. I think
Yeah.
I'd known, but I didn't do it.
Okay,
So Kalbecky isn't planning a subdivision there?
No, they've just got their trucking company hauling there, whatever it is they do.
All right. Any other questions?
Question for you.
You want to come up to the podium, please? And for the record, your name and address, please.
Sure, my name is Robert Leary, 39 Sawgrass Lane in Lancaster. My question is, if it's going to be a landlocked piece of, property there, is it going to be part of a subdivision? That's where I'm getting a little bit confused here. Is there going to be something that's going to say that it's not going to be used for a subdivision, or what are we trying to accomplish with this? Because a landlocked piece of land really isn't good for anybody. And that's obviously not what we want to do. Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Palumbo, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, and again, the word subdivision is a little misleading. The only reason that word is used is because we're dividing that parcel. In the same way that the frontage parcel on the other side was subdivide it, but there's no intention of building houses or anything like that on either of the two parcels. Again, it's the middle parcel that Kobaki owns that retained is strictly for recreational purposes.
So as of right now, I mean, you're asking for it to be, like, just trying to get the verbiage right. So you're asking to subdivide that parcel from the parcel that you sold? So the parcel in front got sold,
Some time ago.
but it was never split correctly? Is that it?
The parcel that fronts on pavement that Anastasi purchased should have required and obtained an approval to subdivide it.
Okay.
That was never done.
That never happened.
That application's been filed, can't be approved because we created this landlocked parcel. And we needed to do something about that, so that's why we tried all those other methods that didn't work, and we are asking this board for a variance for the middle parcel because they will have no actual frontage. They will have access by the easement, and then that'll take care of that issue that was raised in the subdivision. Did I confuse you more?
No, it just, I mean, that's quite a mess. Sounds like to me, I don't know.
Matt, I've asked this many times over the years. Is that an accurate representation of what went on?
Somewhat. I mean, again, this was something that came in after the fact. The site plan review came in for a topsoil processing facility by Anastasi Construction on the
Right.
northern side of that property. Now, I'm going to clarify this because I don't think you're able to see what the original parcel was. The entire road frontage of Pavement Road had two frontage lots. You'll notice on the south boundary line, you have parcel A.
Okay.
A parcel A had a tax parcel number. It's identified as 300 Pavement Road. It had a road frontage of 150 feet wide. Now, this is a strip of land that is directly north of the existing walking path. That's correct. Parcel A, it's SBL number 105.00-2-14.2. Clearly identified as 300 Pavement Road. 150.25 feet of road frontage. The parcel directly to the north was a former quarry. It was the Pine Hill Concrete Sand Pits. That road frontage, 612 feet. And that was identified as 324 Pavement Road. What the transaction was to split 324 Pavement Road into two parcels, an east and a west parcel, combine 300 Pavement Road to the easterly parcel, leaving the westerly parcel by itself, and according to this proposal,
And
merge.
the westerly parcel would be the one that he's asking the variance on?
That's correct.
With the wooded pond that is being used for fishing purposes?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So with that, there's another tax parcel that's identified as parcel C, a vacant lot, Nichter Road in parentheses. That's being combined with that westerly parcel.
Is that down here along the?
Yep.
Is this going to be on the other side of the bike path?
All on the north side of that walking trail.
So that Zero Nichter Road, which one is that being combined with? That strip?
Zero Nichter Road is going to be combined with the westerly portion.
Okay, that, yeah. Okay, so that's going to be part of the larger parcel. Okay.
The caveat with this whole thing is that center parcel, the westerly parcel, has no access to a road frontage as required in that district. It doesn't meet any standard. So they're proposing this access agreement through an existing lot to gain access to what I guess is being proposed as some sort of a recreational area. It could be deemed as a conservation area. I'm not sure if the light industrial district even supports putting a hunting or fishing cabin in there.
Yeah.
We'd have to look at what the permitted uses are with that. Upon my first, review of that entire site, I had already proposed a 100-foot access from 300 Pavement Road to gain access to that rear property. We're not going to be creating a flag lot because we're meeting the minimum width requirements in the light industrial district for a lot. And then leaving the northern portion available to divide
So-
from this property and creating these two compliant lots.
So the 300 parcel, that's the one in the, I'm using the term Flagstaff, but the one
That's
that's
correct.
L-shaped?
Yep, and that's
the one with
identified right now as
600
parcel
some
A.
50 foot of frontage?
That's identified as parcel A.
Okay, and now this question is back for you. You kind of alluded that all of these parcels are under the same umbrella of the same family? Yes?
The two, the middle one and the one that fronts on Cemetery.
At the time, they were owned by one owner.
Right.
They were all separate tax parcels. The problem with this is that the transaction is already completed a year ago. The deed has already been transferred to a new owner, and the new owner is unwilling to relieve himself of the 100 feet to provide access to that center. You want to call it unusable, it's land. It's
usable,
there's
it's land.
acreage, right?
So the family still owns the frontage on Cemetery,
The way it is,
on the other side of the western lot?
yeah, it was all one parcel,
Yep.
and Ted's Quarry transferred to CS Grid.
Do they,
And the owners of CS Grid are the same owners as Ted Quarry, but they had to split this off because of financing reasons.
CS Grid is National Grid now? That's where the National Grid building is?
That's where they are.
That's where the building is. okay.
but it's still owned by Ted's Quarry?
It's owned by CS Grid, which is the same
Entity.
principles as Ted's Quarry.
But they built a building there. It's not vacant anymore.
Another clarification, if I may, but when the National Grid project came into play at 293 Cemetery Road, it was a much smaller lot than you see it today. What happened was there was a lot line adjustment that increased 293 Cemetery Road to give it the full frontage on Cemetery Road, taking from what was the original quarry that spanned the entire length from Cemetery Road to Pavement Road. We've got a lot of machinations going on here, and even at the time, there was never any plan to subdivide the rest of the quarry.
So my question or my thought process of going into this is, would it be possible for them to take 100 foot of frontage off the cemetery one to merge with this subdevelopment to make it compliant?
I don't
If
believe
it's-
that's possible because
with
of
the
the
project?
financing
Correct.
connections with the National Grid property, 293 Cemetery Road. That may be more cumbersome than it would have been to gain access on Pavement Road.
So the two, there were two lots on Cemetery, and those two got merged, or no? Because there's a
There was
not,
one that got divided.
293 Cemetery was at the northwestern corner
Okay.
of the National Grid property. The quarry that you see
yeah,
spanned from Pavement Road all the way through to Cemetery Road.
right.
The bike path to the railroad track? essentially?
Northern side of the bike trail.
Yeah, northern to the bike.
That
trail,
was
all
the
way
entire
to-
quarry.
Okay.
Correct.
So, Mr. Palumbo, why not merge the new parcel with 300 pavement, which they own as well, and which already has 100-foot frontage on pavement?
I don't think they own that anymore.
They sold it.
That's
It got merged.
that's what was sold off.
This is
This
owned
wasn't
by
sold.
Anastasi, this one's owned by Kovacki or Ted's Quarry.
Oh, okay, so that was
So
sold
that-
off with that, so you know, okay.
And the 300, this one is refusing to give the 100 foot of frontage to sell to them.
Yeah, they
So
bought
this
out.
no longer exists, right? That parcel, 300 pavement no longer exists?
No.
No,
a
it's
part-
been merged
Part of
with-
that easterly property.
It's been merged with the Anastasi property.
Yeah, it's been merged with this L-shaped one.
So Matt, let me ask you a question. What is the harm to having a parcel with no road frontage? Obviously, if something was built there, it can't happen because there's no way to
Right.
get to it for fire, for safety. But if it's vacant land, because I'm looking right now, if you look at the part of going west of Cemetery, the area between Cemetery and Commerce Parkway, I guess that is, there's several different old landlocked parcels. So, from our perspective, what's the damage to having a landlocked?
I think that's a better question asked of the town.
Okay. Because to me, it makes it more difficult to ever build on it.
Well, they have an access easement filed. And if there's variance granted, it's made a legal and conforming lot.
So that does make it so.
Of course it does.
That would
Sure.
make it illegal and
So if we needed to install a permitted use in the light industrial district using that access easement, you can easily build,
Subject to
you could
plan.
develop that.
Subject to town
entire-
approval.
Well, town approval, of course, but don't forget, the design standards laid out in these zoning districts are direction to developers on how to properly develop the land within the town.
So what's the need for, what's the need for the variance? Let me put it that way.
Because the center parcel has no frontage. So in order to have the subdivision approved and the site plan for Anastasi approved, we have to correct the problem. And the way to correct the problem is to request the variance. And whether we transferred 100 feet, or Kolbecki bought it, which they don't want, it's the same issue. I mean, the result is the same as if you granted the variance, because we have access with the easement. So, I mean, they could develop it if we transfer the 100 feet, and they can develop it if you grant the variance. What's the harms?
Well, that's part of, if you're asking what's the harm to me, that's part of my concern is if it's just a guy that wants to go fishing there, great. That's
That's what it-
perfect. That's
that's what it
exactly
is.
what it should be. But if the plan is to find some workaround, obscure way to get us to grant it with those conditions, and in 5-10 years, that property then becomes an idea of what's on the other side of the bike path of a bunch of $450,000 homes around the pond back there,
Yeah.
then that's my hang up right now, is I like that bike path. I ride my bike on it. I like that there's woods there. I don't want to see that land to be cut down and turned into another luxury condo
No.
or a luxury cookie cutter home around that pond back there, because today it's for a guy to go fishing and tomorrow it's for him to sell it to a developer for $27 million to put 20 homes up there.
I can
Do you-
tell you in the
it's
light
a-
industrial district,
it's industrial
residential
land.
occupancies are not a permitted use.
Correct.
And I
And
don't- I
in
don't-
6 years, when everyone goes for redistricting or
Right.
rezoning,
And I-
that could very well change.
And I don't mean to speak on behalf
Yeah.
of a planning board or a town board or any other department within the town, but as a zoning officer and understanding what the zoning law requires, it's not inconceivable to ask the owner to put a conservation easement restriction on this property specifically for the purposes of recreational use, fishing, camping, park lands, some sort of a conservation easement on it, if we're looking to not allow a light industrial development on the property. Now, once again, we've got, one owner that owns several pieces of property, and they have the free will to do what they would like to do with them, but once we start developing these pieces of land, we need to remind ourselves we have design standards specifically for development, and these are the minimum standards. And I've repeated over and over again, we do not meet that minimum standard, we're substandard. So these dimensions are there for a purpose, for direction on how to develop. The transaction that has happened here in the last year and a half is not the right way to develop this land. It's illegal. They've created an illegal lot.
Okay, thank you, man.
Sure.
Right, but there is a zoning board of appeals, as Matt and I have talked about many times, for this exact type situation. And the standard is benefit versus detriment, as you all know. And again, there's no detriment because property's the same tomorrow as it is today. They have access. That's another way to provide access by easement, and we've done that. You're not going to put $450,000 houses on this industrial land. I don't think I could even get that rezoned in the town at all. I mean, you'd have to have a rezoning. They have no intention of doing that. It's just not in the cards. It would be in between two industrial pieces of property with earth-moving equipment right next to them.
Any other questions from the board? Mr. Leary, anything else? Do you have any other questions? All right. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Storr.
Whereas the zoning board of appeals of the town of Lancaster has made the following findings, that an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that a detriment to nearby, or that a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the area variance relief sought, that the benefit to the applicant sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance relief sought, that the requested area variance is substantial, and that the proposed area variance will have an adverse effect on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district, that the alleged difficulty is self-created, and that this board has taken into consideration the benefit to the applicant of the variance relief sought if is granted against the weight against the detriment to the health, safety, and welfare of the neighborhood or community by such grant, that within the intent and purpose of this ordinance, the variance relief sought, that this variance is to be rejected.
Thank you, Mr. Storr. Yeah.
May I mention that a yes vote will be a denial?
Yes, thank you. This is a petition, this is
A motion for rejection.
motion to deny. So yes vote.
I'll second.
Okay, second, Mr. Zelak. And roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mikely,
No.
Mr. Storr,
Yes.
Mr. Tillmans,
Yes.
Mr. Boblewski,
Yes.
Mr. Zelik,
Yes.
and Chairman Monzo.
Yes.
Okay, so it is denied.
Okay.
You gotta be kidding me, really. You gotta be kidding me. Now I have to bring a lawsuit and spend the taxpayers' money over this?
You do what you need to do, Mr. Conlon. Any other business? Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.